Imagine spending 40 years leading your people through the wilderness toward a promised homeland, only to be told at the very end that you will never set foot in it. That's the story of Moses. And then here's the strange part. The Bible itself doesn't seem entirely sure why. The answer to this mystery tells us something profound, not just about Moses, but about how the Bible itself was written. To understand why this mystery matters, we first need to understand just how extraordinary Moses was in the biblical world. No figure in the Hebrew Bible comes close. Moses dominates 4 of the Torah's 5 books, from Exodus through Deuteronomy. He's the mediator between God and Israel, the leader of the Exodus, the one who receives the covenant at Sinai. And the Bible gives him a distinction shared by no one else. He spoke with God face to face, mouth to mouth. Every other prophet receives visions, dreams, indirect communication. Moses alone gets direct access. The tradition also names him as Israel's lawgiver. Now, scholars have observed that the legal collections in the Torah draw on broader ancient Near Eastern traditions and were compiled much later, then attributed back to Moses, a process called retrojection, assigning later developments to an earlier authoritative figure. This doesn't diminish Moses' narrative role. It clarifies how the text was assembled. Here's the arc of Moses' life in broad strokes. He leads Israel out of Egypt through the Red Sea to Mount Sinai, where God delivers the law. Then comes 40 years of wandering in the wilderness, 40 years of rebellion, complaint, and crisis. Through all of it, Moses holds the people together, and then at the very end, he arrives at Mount Nebo on the east side of the Jordan River. Canaan, the promised land, stretches out before him. He can see it, but he will never cross that river. For ancient Israelites, this was deeply troubling. Their greatest leader, the man closest to God, didn't reach the goal. Right? In Deuteronomy chapter 3, Moses personally begs God, let me cross over. God says no. So if Moses was this extraordinary, God's closest human confidant, why would God deny him the promised land? This is where it gets interesting. The Bible offers an explanation, and it centers on an incident at a place called Meribath-kadesh, a name meaning roughly waters of contention at Kadesh. The story appears in Numbers chapter 20, and it raises more questions than it answers. Here's what happens. The people are thirsty, they complain. God tells Moses to take his staff and speak to a rock, and water will flow. Instead, Moses strikes the rock twice, water gushes out. The people drink, problem solved, it seems. But God declares, because you did not trust in me to show my holiness before the Israelites, you shall not bring this assembly into the land I have given them. That's a severe punishment. And the text is genuinely unclear about what the sin was. Was it striking the rock instead of speaking to it? Was it the way Moses addressed the people, saying, shall we bring water from this rock, as if he and Aaron, not God, deserved the credit? Was it a failure of faith? Interpreters have debated this for over 2,000 years. The confusion is not accidental. Scholars have observed something striking. The explanation may work backward from the outcome. The tradition that Moses died east of the Jordan likely existed first. It was a remembered fact, perhaps very old. Biblical writers then faced a theological problem. If Moses was the greatest prophet, why didn't God let him finish the journey? He must have sinned. So they searched for a moment that could serve as the explanation. The Meribath-kadesh incident became that moment. Deuteronomy 32 adds its own version. You broke faith with me among the Israelites, failing to uphold my sanctity. The surface reading says, sin leads to punishment. The scholarly reading says the tradition of death outside the land came first, and the sin narrative was constructed to explain it. This pattern reveals something important about how the Bible was composed. It didn't arrive as a single seamless document. It grew in layers. At the deepest layer sits oral tradition, the remembered fact that Moses died east of the Jordan. Above that, early written tradition shaped the Meribath-kadesh narrative in Numbers 20. Then editorial explanation added the theological framing in Deuteronomy. You broke faith with me. Finally, all of it was woven into the polished text we read today. Each layer builds on the one below, attempting to explain what came before. This isn't about debunking scripture. It's about understanding the Bible as a living document shaped by generations of writers grappling with their own history. But whatever the explanation for his exclusion, the Bible's final word on Moses is not punishment, it's praise. And it's the most extraordinary praise given to any human in all of Scripture. Deuteronomy 34 describes the scene. Moses climbs Mount Nebo. God shows him the entire promised land. Then in the far north, Naphtali, Ephraim, and Manasseh, Judah stretching to the western sea, the Negev, the Jordan Valley, Jericho, the city of palm trees, all the way to Zor. He sees everything. He enters nothing. Moses dies there on the mountain in the land of Moab. And then the narrator delivers the eulogy. There never again arose in Israel such a prophet as Moses, whom God knew face to face. No other human character in the Bible receives this from the narrator. Moses becomes the measuring stick for all future leaders. His story, including its unresolved tensions, is what makes the biblical portrait so compelling and so human. Next time you read a biblical story that doesn't quite add up, ask yourself, what older tradition might the writer be trying to explain?